This is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Ben Leo. Tonight, one of the saddest stories I've ever come across. An English primary school cancels Easter in a bid to respect other religions. Of course they did. But don't worry, everybody. They're still celebrating Refugee Week and becoming a so-called sanctuary school instead. Very good. Also tonight...
So while you work... I'm gonna need your help.
Let's go! Disney's £250 million woke remake of Snow White proves a box office flop, who'd have guessed, and one of the worst performing movies in recent years. The IMDb website gives it just 2 stars out of 10. Also...
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. Super weird. So we didn't do that this time.
Yeah, there we go. We can see why it flopped. Elsewhere, we knew he loved the royal family, but now President Donald Trump suggests the United States should join the Commonwealth. So would you let them in? And...
It could be anywhere, couldn't it? You could be on one of the nicest beaches almost anywhere in Europe. It's just fabulous. It's such an asset. Yeah. And it's so underused.
Oh, it was beautiful indeed. I visited the most deprived area of Britain on my travels this week, but what I found might surprise you. Joining me this evening is journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, the anarchist and academic Dr. Lisa McKenzie, and the former Labour special advisor Paul Richards. And what do you reckon's going on here?
I've been waiting on this day.
Big show coming up, including that unbelievable story of how an English school has cancelled Easter out of respect for other religions. But first, your news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good evening to you. Let's get you up to date with the top stories. The boss of Heathrow Airport has welcomed an independent investigation into the power outage that has resulted in disruption for thousands of passengers. Thomas Walby, who this morning defended his airport's handling of the incident, says he welcomes anything that will strengthen future resilience to respond to unforeseen events. And the government's ordered an inquiry saying there are lessons to be learned. Well, hundreds of thousands of passengers have been affected. Disruption from the shutdown's expected to last through the weekend. Simon Calder, the Independent's travel expert, says it's because airlines are going to have to juggle stranded planes and stranded crews.
while Heathrow is saying we're back to full operation, what they mean is if you've got your pilots and your planes and your passengers in the right place, we can probably handle that. But everything is still in disarray. We heard about all the cancellations of British Airways, total of 100 cancellations today. I think that's going to affect something up to 20,000 passengers, taking us to easily 250,000 since this power plant caught fire and closed down Europe's busiest airport.
Pope Francis will be discharged tomorrow after spending 5 weeks in hospital with double pneumonia. The Pope was admitted on February the 14th with a severe respiratory infection. His medical team say during that time the pontiff suffered 2 very critical episodes where his life was in danger. Well, his doctors have confirmed he is now in a stable condition, but he'll need at least 2 months rest at the Vatican. He's expected to make his first public appearance in 5 weeks tomorrow. The boxing legend George Foreman has died at the age of 76. Foreman won an Olympic gold. He demolished Joe Frazier to become the heavyweight champion for the first time at the age of 24. A year later, he lost one of the greatest fights of all time against Muhammad Ali. The sport's legendary Rumble in the Jungle. It took place in Kinshasa, in Zaire, now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo. But Foreman returned 20 years later to win the world title again, becoming the oldest man to do so at the age of 45. Boxing promoter Frank Warren says those fights with Ali and Fraser will define him.
And those 3 guys, they were the holy trinity of heavyweight boxing. You know, they fought each other, no ducking each other, great fights. When the fight happened, Ali, as I say, wasn't so mobile, and he brought in what he called then his rope-a-dope, where he'd lay on the ring on the ropes and sort of keep his hands up and take shots with his elbows. And George basically punched himself out. He was a big man and he punched himself out, and then suddenly, a split second, Ali opened up and stopped him. It was quite a moment in sport.
The Lebanese Health Ministry says 6 people, including a child, have been killed by a series of Israeli airstrikes in the south of the country. Israel's military says it hit dozens of Hezbollah rocket launchers and a command centre. It came in response to rockets being fired at Israel from Lebanon, which were intercepted. Hezbollah has denied responsibility and said it had no link to the rocket launchers. There were no reports of casualties in Israel. Meanwhile, pro-Palestinian protesters have been rallying outside the Israeli embassy in central London. At least 4 separate demonstrations and counter-protests are set to take place across the capital over the weekend. It comes after a week in which at least 85 Palestinians were killed by Israel, according to health authorities in Gaza. Finally, British landmarks, including Buckingham Palace, the London Eye and Windsor Castle, have fallen dark. It's happening right now as part of World's Earth Hour. Lights were switched off at 8:30 tonight UK time. It's already happened elsewhere in the world too. This is the Acropolis in Athens. It went dark earlier this evening. And the same thing happened at Tokyo Tower in Japan, and indeed at Victoria Harbour in Hong Kong, where the lights went out, and we may well see them come back on in just a second. All of this organised by the nature group WWF, encouraging governments around the world to do more for environmental issues, and you're being encouraged to switch off your lights at home as well. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with more at 10 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening to you. Thank you for your company. Hope you've had a good day. I've been a journalist for 15 years and have been lucky enough to travel the world reporting on all sorts of stories, but I don't think I've ever been left quite as gobsmacked about a story as I have today, and it takes me a lot to get rattled. A primary school in England has reportedly scrapped Easter celebrations and services in order to respect other religions and diversity. They've cancelled Easter. But get this, they're still celebrating Refugee Week instead. Norwood Primary School in Eastleigh, Hampshire, sent a letter to parents and carers informing them that neither their Easter bonnet parade nor their Easter service would be held this year. The letter explained that this was because of the state school's, quote, respect for diversity. It said, by not holding specific religious celebrations, we aim to create a more inclusive atmosphere that honours and respects the beliefs of all our children and their families. It went on. We understand that this change may be disappointing for some, especially those who have cherished these traditions over the years. However, we believe that this decision aligns with our values of inclusivity and respect for diversity. We are exploring alternative ways to celebrate the season in future years that will be inclusive of all the children and reflects the rich cultural diversity of our community. And unbelievably, the letter added that the school planned to celebrate Refugee Week in June. Yes, Refugee Week. So what do we know about the school? Its latest Ofsted report said the quality of education at Norwood Primary was judged as needing improvement. Inspectors wrote, the school's curriculum is currently underdeveloped. While the school is ambitious for pupils' success, some pupils do not achieve high enough. It went on. Too many pupils do not develop into fluent readers and writers. The school, though, was judged as good when it came to behaviour and attitudes, personal development of children, leadership and early years provision. Tonight, I took a look at the Norwood website. The school says it promotes so-called British values, including democracy, the rule of law, individual liberty, mutual respect and tolerance of different faiths and beliefs. I'll repeat that, tolerance of different faiths and beliefs. But I question whether its tolerance of faith extends to Christianity. Because on the website, if you dig a bit deeper, under the Respect of Faiths and Beliefs page, it says, throughout the school year, important celebrations in the lives of our children and school community are marked and celebrated together. These include Eid, Diwali, Christmas and Easter. But it appears Easter's been cancelled, doesn't it? Further down the page, as you can see here on your screen, there are multiple PDF documents about previous assemblies held at the school. Let's go through them, shall we? At the top, we have Year of the Dog, celebrating Chinese New Year. Then the Hindu Festival of Holi, a healthy eating and well-being assembly just beneath that. One for Islam's Ramadan, one for the royal wedding, another Islamic celebration with Eid. Just below that, then giving to charity. There's a China visit, another Hindu festival of Diwali, and finally at the bottom there, the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. I can't see Easter anywhere. Where is Lent? Where is Christmas? Now, I've approached the school tonight and we've asked them for comment and we're still awaiting their response. They'd argue, of course, as I've covered, that this has been done to support inclusion and diversity, but I suggest it seems every faith is tolerated and included, apart from the very faith this country was built on. And I'll be honest, relaying this story to you tonight sparks a range of emotions inside me. There is some anger, there's shock, there's disbelief, but ultimately for me, it's a feeling of sadness. We saw over Christmas in London how previously loved Christmas lights in the main shopping streets, such as Oxford Street, Regent Street, were renamed Winter Wonder Lights and other such nonsense. And I separately reported from a Winter Wonder market where traders told me they weren't allowed to say the word Christmas. And I didn't hear a peep from the Church of England about the Shrove Tuesday this year. Instead, they did find time, however, to tweet about net zero. I actually feel a sense of grief at what's happening to our country's identity and do often wonder what will be left for my children to recognise when they come to inherit the land I grew up in. But let's get the thoughts now of my panel. Communications advisor and journalist Linda Jubilee, the anarchist and academic Dr Lisa Mackenzie, and the former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards. Good evening all. This is a very sad story for me. Normally I'd be a bit fired up by it and, calling it what a disgrace and so on, but in actual fact, I feel a bit defeated tonight, Lisa. I feel like I just feel sad that this is happening in our country.
Well, my son was, we lived in a very multicultural area in Nottingham. It was one of the council estates, and there was, everybody lived on it from all different backgrounds. And his school was one of the first. This was in the 90s that did celebrate everything. And I really enjoyed that. I liked that happened. But obviously, Christmas and Easter was part of it.
Yeah.
So there was Hanukkah, there was Jamaican sort of summer week, and I really enjoyed that they were doing that. But obviously they did celebrate Christmas and Easter as they were. So I actually agree with you. I think this is a bit sad. I do think this is a bit sad.
There are calls, Linda, for the head teacher who has apparently behind this, they sent the letter out to be sacked. I mean, is this a sackable offence?
I don't know whether it's a sackable offence, but it's incredibly serious if we continually say that this country is a Christian country, that this country lives along Christian values, then you can't possibly cut out what is the most important religious festival in the Christian calendar. It's more important than Christmas. Easter is the really significant one. And to cut it out is utterly ludicrous.
And can I just say as well, I didn't mention in the introduction there, what a bunch of hypocrites banging on about diversity and tolerance of other religions and faiths and communities. You're deliberately excluding Christianity. For what reason, I don't know. You're trying to be some sort of virtuous do-gooder. In actual fact, you're doing more harm than good.
My kids went to a Catholic primary school and they celebrated at his school, where all my children went, all three monotheistic religions. They were all celebrated, they were all marked equally, everyone was completely happy. So I don't understand why you would cut out Easter. It's a really flaky response and it's very, very weak. You can't blame people for worrying about the decline in the Anglican religion.
Come on then, Paul. Are you going to defend this?
No, I'm not.
No.
I think
Hallelujah, praise the Lord. Can I say that?
I think it is indefensible. I think the governors of the school need to get involved and just look, unearth what has happened here. Whether it was just the head teacher's unilateral decision or not, you know, we need to look at the detail of this. But it's ridiculous, and children should know all the different world religions. They should understand the roots of all of those faiths, and they should have an understanding about liturgy and about theology, and, you know, that's a grounding in all these things so they can go into the world, you know.
Or even just the celebration of it. I mean, obviously, I'm an atheist, and I don't care whether it's Easter celebrating rabbits or whether it's celebrating Jesus. I'm not, you know, but it's the celebration and the way that society sort of celebrates different days.
The kids should know what it means, shouldn't they?
So the Year of the Dog isn't even a religious festival. That's a Chinese. That's the Lunar New Year.
Royal weddings.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's where I have no problem with what the schools do, because they're celebrating different, you know, things that are important to lots of different people. And unfortunately now, whenever I hear this word inclusive or inclusivity, I just sort of feel depressed, because I know that...
exactly. Diversity does not mean ignoring things and you know, wiping them out.
When I hear those words now, diversity, inclusion, it just makes me feel depressed, because I know it's not.
Paul, I have to make a defence for the school here, because they haven't, as of yet, got back to us. I have tried calling many governors and so on and so on. No one's got back to us.
They're probably appalled, aren't they? I mean, I bet the governors don't even know about it.
They say... you know,
God knows what the parents
I'm reluctant
the parents must be up in arms
to play devil's advocate, but I have to. They say it's for diversity and inclusion.
But it's the opposite of diversity, isn't it?
That's why I get depressed when I hear those words.
Stupid decision.
Because, you know, in the 90s, when my son was at school, when they did this, it wasn't called diversity or inclusion, it was just school.
It's nothing.
Yeah,
it's
teaching
nothing. Children nothing.
Yeah, whereas now, because they've given it this name and these titles, it becomes, you know, it becomes sort of tick boxy,
homogenised.
Yeah.
The kids should know. They should know about the world religions. You know, millions of billions of people on the planet we worship in these different ways. It's affecting our politics, our, you know, everything, the economy.
Why is there...
So they should know about it.
An open question to any of you. Why is there such an open... Is hatred the word? Why is there such an open willingness to try and put Britain down, or ignore everything that makes Britain great, our identity?
I don't think they're putting Britain down, but I think what they're doing is virtue signalling. At the end of the day, you know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but there's a reason why Anglican or Christian or Catholic schools score very, very highly, and it is because they are structured. They believe in really tight curriculums, and they have some focus. So I think. I don't want to comment on this school's academic performance, but I mean...
Well, you saw the Ofsted report. It was good in terms of behaviour and so on and so on, but the key indicator, quality of education, needs improvement. Why don't you get your priorities right? Stop banging on about virtue signaling, do-gooder, shunning Easter Christian holidays. Why don't you start, you know, doing...
I'll tell you what I will defend, though, is Refugee Week. There's no problem with celebrating that and recognising that. One of the core messages of Christianity is about welcoming people. So I don't think... I wouldn't counterpose those two things.
Christianity, i.e. the Good Samaritan,
I mean,
and then not support refugee.
You know,
I'm
but that not instead of Easter.
I'm a Republican, and I wouldn't want I don't want the royal family, but I would still think that you could celebrate, you know, a royal wedding or whatever.
Well, exactly.
Just because I'm a sociologist and I know that days and festivals mean things to society. You know, it doesn't have to have a religious meaning.
It's better than gaming, isn't it? Sitting around and chatting and eating.
So as a sociologist, I understand that celebrating festivals
it's ritual,
is a good thing. Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, you shouldn't be celebrating Refugee Week if you're not celebrating it's the biggest Christian holiday
it is.
I agree. In the country.
Totally. Completely. Agreed. There we are.
I mean, there was
We're fierce in our agreement.
There were some really serious problems in school today, and I was listening to the radio on the way in.
Yeah, teachers.
Well, no, this problem is
Is it because they're millennials?
The smartphones. There was one primary school where 28 of 30 children bought a smartphone.
Yeah, ban them all. Ban them all.
That's a big problem.
Do you know what I think? Is it because school teachers are now millennials? And millennials have obviously got they've got a very terrible sort of view of the world.
Do you know what? I'm not surprised homeschooling numbers have absolutely exploded since COVID. We saw people testing the waters during COVID. They were forced to. And if you look at the figures now, numbers are going through the roof. You know, people not wanting to expose their children to the propaganda, the indoctrination of the education establishment in this country.
I think what parents want is structure. They want to go to a school that has structure.
Well, you know, if you talk to kids, so where I live, I talk to young people, and they hate this stuff. So all this diversity inclusion stuff that's forced on them, they actually, because they're rebellious young people, they actually really dislike this stuff. So I think that it will be the next generation that is rebelling against this.
And do you know what? Just lastly, Paul, before we go on, for me, this is so serious, this story. This example is so serious, and I really fear how many other examples there are across the country. It was only because a parent leaked this letter on Facebook. Probably loads, to be fair. This is so serious for me, and I know he won't, but I'd expect Keir Starmer to say something next week to condemn this.
Well, I think at least the schools minister should look at this, because I think there is an issue about the governance of the school. Well, that's a very good question. You put me on the spot now, but yeah, somebody in that department should have a look.
That's it, education.
Phillips and Bridget Phillips.
No, she's the Secretary of State, but I mean the actual schools minister.
Okay. All right, well, we're going to touch on this again in the 10 o'clock hour, because we may get some new viewers at 10 o'clock, and I just want to make sure that everybody in this country is aware of what's going on, so we will be covering this again. Anyway, we move on. We want to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British giveaway. Your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Very good luck to you. Up next, should the United States be part of the Commonwealth? Is this the right move for the UK and indeed the United States? We'll debate that next. Back in a tick.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, President Donald Trump has expressed his love for the King again overnight in a post on his Truth social network. The post was made in response to a report from the Sun newspaper that King Charles is considering inviting the United States to become the next associate member of the Commonwealth, and it's hoped the royal family might be able to reduce the tensions between Canada and the US at the same time. So the big question tonight is, should the US be part of the Commonwealth? I'm joined now by royal historian Hugo Vickers and broadcaster and neurodiversity coach Fahima Mohammed. Good evening to you both. Hugo, I'll start with you. What's your take on this? First of all, what is an associate member of the Commonwealth? I don't think that exists, correct me if I'm wrong. And secondly, apparently reports suggest, Hugo, that the late Queen Elizabeth was quite fond of this idea of the US somehow joining the Commonwealth.
Well, it's a very interesting idea. I'm not sure it's going to happen, but the great thing about the Commonwealth is that it's a family of nations. That's what the late Queen always used to call it. And they come together because they want to be together. So it's completely different from the whole thing of empire, you know, being sort of, as it were, sort of not quite enslaved. But lots of countries are wanting to join, and I'm all for these different countries getting together. I mean, I was very lucky to go to the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham and see all the different youngsters who came from Caribbean islands and all parts of the Commonwealth and overseas territories to compete with each other in sport, which, of course, is a wonderful opportunity for them to get to know each other. First time they'd probably travelled outside their countries from their islands. And, you know, competing in sport is much better than, as it were, fighting each other or being suspicious of each other. It's a wonderful opportunity to everybody get together. Now, the thought of America joining into this is really rather interesting, because you've heard a lot about Donald Trump rather rudely suggesting that Canada should become the 51st state. Yeah. Well, that's not going to happen, I assure you. But the thought of them becoming, well, you asked me about associate member. I don't actually quite know what that means and whether that's from anything that we've heard before. But basically, I'm all for people getting together, you know, coming to meet each other, travelling into each other's countries, and all those things, because I think that's the way forward. You know, understanding and sympathy, and the Queen absolutely loved the Commonwealth. I mean, she devoted herself heart and soul to it all the way through her reign, and she used to go out to the Commonwealth heads of government meetings, and she used to say that it was great fun because the prime ministers came about 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, and she said, I feel like a doctor. They come and tell me the problem.
Bless Her Majesty. Fahima, what's your take on this? Would you welcome the United States into the Commonwealth?
I'm not sure that the United States will actually be kind of, a practical sort of alignment with the American interests. To be honest, the United States was founded through a revolution against British colonial rule, establishing a national identity centered on independence from the British governance. So joining this organization historically linked to the British Empire could be viewed as contradictory and also to its foundational principles. There's also an impracticality of its fundamental misalignment with American interests, identity, and strategic priorities. And despite its historical significance, it does really not offer the United States any unique advantage that it doesn't already have and can achieve through its vast network of alliances, namely, the trade unions and diplomatic relations that they have already with the G7, UN, as well as the NATO. So at the end of the day, I feel that, this kind of like US, focus on reinforcing its role as a global leader through independent and mutually beneficial partnerships is not really something that's going to benefit, whether it's going to be for the British or the US. It's just mainly symbolic, really.
Yeah, I think, Hugo, if anything, it's just for Donald Trump's ego, no? I mean, he's a massive royalist. He talks fondly of Her late Majesty, the Queen Elizabeth II. He says that King Charles is a great guy. I mean, surely, if this does happen, it's just because Donald Trump's a big fan.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing that he is a big fan because we need everybody to be on side. And, there's no harm in that at all. I mean, I think you mentioned earlier the possibility, of the royal family being the sort of the unifying force between the two countries because the special relationship is not terribly strong at the moment. I think that I think it, maybe it's very difficult. I'm the last person that you can possibly imagine who can predict the workings of Donald Trump's mind. Anything keeps him on side and keeps him friendly and keeps him, warm towards Britain. I'm all for encouraging that. And I think that, obviously Keir Starmer agrees because he went out there with that invitation specifically for him to come on a state visit, which he seemed to welcome, didn't he? Immediately.
He did, but then he kind of grumbled that Zelensky got one the next day. Hugo, you've written so many books, so many books on the royals, from the Queen Elizabeth II and so on. Let me pick your brains, if you don't mind. There's been so much debate around whether Queen Elizabeth II liked Donald Trump or not. He insists that they got on like a house on fire. Do you have any insight that you can share with us about that relationship?
Well, the interesting thing is that, you could apply this equally to British prime ministers. Every now and again you get a prime minister like Harold Wilson who tells you that the Queen got on very well with him. It was never the Queen who said these things. Somebody put it to me the other day that Donald Trump had suggested that the Queen said that he was her favourite president. And my comment was, I bet you she sent every president home thinking, don't you think?
Yeah, probably. I think you're right.
I'll tell you what I will tell you, though, because I do happen to know this, that she certainly enjoyed meeting him and she kept him longer at Windsor Castle when he came to tea that first time than on schedule. But, of course, that, again, is a very nice, polite thing to do. But I suspect, knowing the way the Queen was, that she's probably rather fascinated to study Donald Trump, It's rather interesting. Wouldn't you be? I mean, if you had him in the room, you'd want to find out what he had to say. All rather interesting.
Amazing. Love that, Hugo. Thank you for the insight. Very interesting to know. I mean, maybe Donald Trump is speaking the truth based on that little comment from you there. Hugo Vickers, royal historian, thank you, and broadcaster and neurodiversity coach. Fahima Mohammed, thank you for your company tonight. Right, coming up, the remake of the Disney classic Snow White has been released in cinemas and the verdicts are in. Can you guess what's happened? We'll discuss that next. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
After a chilly week, things are turning warmer for Cyprus. We've seen some very heavy rain this week in Spain, but finally turning drier. Still a cold breeze coming down from the north, though, bringing a chill to the Canaries, and still quite a few heavy showers across southern Spain and for Catalonia and the Balearics too on Sunday. But it does look as if it will be turning drier. Some heavy showers for Croatia, plenty of fine and sunny weather over the Greek islands. It'll be warming up here too and turning much drier in Barcelona next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As steak and ale is the most popular one. That's the one that's in the British Pie Awards. We've got chicken. We do a just steak. All the steak is slow cooked overnight, and then we shred it and mix it with Tracy's signature gravy. We've also now been able to put fruit pies on, and we do quiches as well.
This family-run pie shop in Dinnington is going for a big win at the British Pie Awards. The busy South Yorkshire store has only been open for 6 weeks, and already it's hoping for a prize for its pies.
It's British tradition. You know, it lets especially independent people like us to get his name out there, especially if we win the award. Everybody loves a good pie, especially with we do meals with the mash and the chips and the peas and the gravy. We'll put baked beans on if they want them. It's just tradition, isn't it? Everybody loves a good pie.
For the customers here, pies are one of Britain's best dishes.
They're always full of goodness, aren't they? Hearty, filling, and you could put them with so many things, different vegetables, different types of potatoes. Yeah, just good all-rounder.
Feel-good food, innit? Pies, yeah. It's not like takeaway food, it's just feel-good food. Feel at home, you know.
If it's got a nice filling and a nice pastry, there's nothing better. But just like them, the easy meals. My family love all the pies here. I've come in about 3 times a week this week, especially the quiches that you can see coming out of the oven. They're freshly made, you can take them home and freeze them.
So here we go, we've got the Handmade Pie Company's steak and ale pie, the one that's been entered for the awards. Let's give it a try. That is absolutely delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. The remake of the Disney classic Snow White, remember that, has been released in cinemas.
So while you work,
I'm gonna need your help.
Let's go!
Well, it actually doesn't look that bad in that small clip there, but the verdicts are now in after previews in the US. After heavy scrutiny in the build-up to the release, the film has been branded as Disney's wokest yet. Many critics giving it 1 to 2 stars and calling it an awful reboot. In a 2022 interview, the lead actress in the new film, Rachel Zegler, branded the original film dated.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Oh, dearie me, bore off. And now the film's been slapped with bizarre trigger warnings too. Viewers are warned that a woman is, quote, deliberately poisoned, a couple gently kiss, and that the film features ominous trees. US Showbiz reporter Sean Mandel joins me live from Los Angeles now. Sean, this isn't good news for Disney, is it? So much money on the film, and according to IMDb, the famous internet movie website, it's had 2 out of 10 stars. Not good.
Yeah, it's not doing great business for Disney, either on the PR front or at the box office front. The one thing that could be said, I think, is that it could have been worse. We still don't know the final tally for opening weekend, but it looks to be opening at about $45 million for this big, 3-4 day preview beginning start in theaters. Now, this is on par with another Disney movie that was considered to be a flop, 2019's Dumbo, which was a remake of that animated or live action sort of take on it, directed by Tim Burton. The big difference here, and again, that was considered very much not a success. The big difference is the cost in budget. That film came in at about $170 million. This film's, the Snow White remake, is anywhere between $250 and $270 million. So it has a steep climb to profitability. And there are factors to be weighed in there in terms of there was COVID that happened in the middle of production, but there were also quite a bit of reshoots with the studio not happy with how the film was coming along. And that adds a lot onto the final budget, add in the PR headaches. And it's been a tough road for Disney to walk.
All right, well, let's talk about these PR headaches, because I remember back in 2022, we just played a clip of the main actress, Rachel Zegler there, who plays Snow White. I remember the controversy, the headlines that she was causing back at the time by saying things such as, calling the Prince Charming a weirdo, for example, talking about it being outdated. It's not going to be a story about traditional romance. It's about female empowerment. I remember this back in 2022, 2023. So how much of a part has Rachel Zegler played in sort of warming up this flop? It seemed inevitable, really.
I think that's correct. I think the situation that is happening with the film is that these type of movies are geared towards a female audience. So on one hand, these type of comments and casting actors such as Rachel Zegler, who I think is important to note now is 23. So the casting would have started in about 2020. She was much younger. Then she's used to having a public platform and used to being of that generation of Gen Z who shares their political views openly. And there was a feeling, I think, at the time that was maybe the right mode to get people to come to these films, because it was going to be a different take. It wasn't just going to be the same rehashing, and that there was concern that on the opposite side of things that maybe they would get criticism if they didn't sort of change the narrative.
Okay.
So but now it's obviously, created all these negative headlines that they've had to contend with.
Yeah. OK, Sean, great insight. Thank you very much. Do you know what? I hate the term woke. I actually don't like saying it. But as they say, go woke, go broke. So there we go. Panel, welcome back. Linda, Lisa, Paul. Rachel Zegler, the main actress in this film, she caused a massive storm again in November last year when she said she felt a deep, deep sickness after President Donald Trump was re-elected. It just epitomises.
She's ridiculous.
Yeah.
She should go and do some charity work somewhere and get on with being an actor. The fact of the matter is that, as our guests there alluded to, that they are casting sometimes on the basis of how many likes they might get from Gen Z, when actually they should be thinking along creative lines, and they should be thinking about who is actually best for the part. I think it would be quite funny if they actually went back to the original version constructed by the Brothers Grimm in 1812. They'd have trigger warnings all over that one.
Wow, yeah. And Paul, I remember in 2022, they were talking, even Rachel Zegler was talking about the Prince Charming kiss, when Snow White's in her deep slumber, suggesting that it was sort of rapey or sexual assault.
Well, in the Grimm story, actually it is, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the modern version takes that out, but the original story was. But anyway, why is Hollywood utterly obsessed, I think, with reinventing films that were perfectly good in the first place and then trying to redo them, usually much worse? So this is just another example, but they keep doing this. They took The Italian Job, brilliant film, remade it, rubbish.
Yeah.
Why do they do it? Just do some new films.
They become anodyne. Once they do that, they just become bland.
I have got a theory about this.
Go on then.
As we're supposed to be becoming more diverse and inclusive.
Oh,
We're actually becoming less diverse and inclusive, which basically means that you don't get a broader group of people involved with things. So you've got a one view.
They're just the elites.
And that's what seems to happen. I also was really annoyed with the actor, when she was slating the original movie, 1937.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It was the first Disney film ever made. Each frame was painted by hand.
It's a classic.
Oh, really?
Imagine
it
took them 5 years to make it because every single frame was painted by hand. How dare she with no talent?
Yeah. Yeah, you imagine that. I mean, that jumped up. I mean, good luck to her, but I think she's pretty jumped up. And she ended her statement in November saying F Donald Trump, so she's also pretty hateful as well. Anyway, there we go. What a shame that it's flopped. Coming up, is Leo, in Leo Unleashed, rather. I travelled to the coast this week. I travelled to a pretty cool seaside resort. Can you guess where I went? It's the most deprived area of Britain, but what I found was quite surprising, and it may surprise you. Don't go anywhere. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we will start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. So this weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier, however, with lots of cloud around. That does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us. However, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us and temperatures a little above average.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time now for Leo Unleashed, where I drag my backside out of the studio and travel all around the UK to see what life is like in your communities. What's great about where you live, what can be improved, how is government policy affecting you? And I have plenty of fun along the way too, just like I did when I visited the most deprived area of the UK this week, a little place called Jaywick Sands near Clacton in Essex. And I was joined by Jeff Bray, who is the leader of the reform group on tendering District Council. In Unleashed, I'm in Jaywick Sands in Clacton in Essex. A beautiful part of the world, rolling sand dunes, beautiful skies. The sun is shining today. You wouldn't think that this place in 2019 was labelled by the government at the time as the most deprived area of the UK. However, there's big things in the future coming in Jaywick Sands. Lots of money, regeneration, and from speaking to the locals here, lots of optimism for the future. You wouldn't think from just coming up here, a few steps onto the seawall here, that this is the most deprived town in the UK. Why was that the case? What were the reasons?
The fact that we are in a flood zone, so you're in flood zone 3, you're looking at inward investment is difficult because of that.
But there are big plans. £120 million is apparently being earmarked over the next 20 years here.
But if you look at the seawall, moving the seawall out, creating a promenade, looking up this road here, you can see it's virtually impossible for people to get backwards and forwards on wheelchairs, bicycles and the like. That needs to be done. At the same time, you improve the flood defences, because without that, there's not really much point in doing anything else. Everybody's very aware of what happened here in 1953, major flooding, heavy loss of life. And
how many people died in that 53? I
believe it was 35, Ben, and that, you know, nobody wants that to happen again.
Should we go and say hello to these ladies?
I think
here?
we should. I think we
Angelwood. Are you mediums? Hello. Yeah. Who's the boss? Oh, you are. There we go.
It's got such a lovely atmosphere. It really has.
Good energy.
Exactly.
Good vibes.
Exactly. And
probably because of you lot.
And you'd be really surprised how spiritual a place Jaywick is.
I'm doing astrology too.
Astrology? Yeah. What's in the stars for the UK, do you reckon, in the coming 6 months?
New beginnings.
New beginnings. Just remind me of the Leave percent in the Brexit campaign. Morning, how are you?
Yeah.
You guys from GB News viewers there. Reggie, and you saved him from a drug dealer?
Yeah. But within 3 months, that drug dealer died of an asthma attack, so karma. All they want is love, walks and food.
Sounds like humans.
Yeah.
Just a bit of love and a bit of food.
Yeah. It's got such a bad reputation, and I don't know why. See the people here, best people in the world.
Yeah.
Best people in the world. Everyone always says hello to you. Do you know what I mean?
That's what everyone says.
This is like East London when I was a child, growing up in East London. This is Jaywick reminds me of that.
Rainy Bakes, that's who we're looking for. Lorraine from Rainy Bakes. Oh, here we go. This is dangerous. Here now with Lorraine from Rainy Bakes. Lorraine, you were telling us on the seafront about how long you've been here. How long have you been here? How did you get into it?
Just over a year. How I got into it, I was a home baker. It then took off. People from Facebook would post pictures and somebody else would ask. Then made some of my tray bakes, put them on a little market that we've got on a Thursday here. I'm very famous for all my brownies, and at the moment, Dubai chocolate.
Oh. Wow.
Everybody said Jaywick is the most deprived town. Actually, Jaywick likes a little treat. They're not deprived. If they want to come and have a milkshake, they come and have a milkshake. They come and have a piece of brownie.
Just look at it. It could be anywhere, couldn't it? You could be on one of the nicest beaches almost anywhere in Europe. It's just fabulous. It's such an asset.
Yeah.
And it's so underused because Jaywick has this silly stigma and it doesn't deserve it. Jaywick's just so much better than that.
Nigel Farage, of course, leader of Reform UK, is the MP for this area.
He will be pushing the government to get the money we need to do this. Because realistically, Ben, without the government stumping up the funds, this is not going to happen. We really need the government to take projects like this seriously.
They call this the most deprived area of the UK, and when you come into Jaywick Sands, I understand that name tag. But when you come and look at the raw potential of the place, and I have to say, in all my travels of doing Leo Unleashed, and even before that, in my years as a journalist, I've never been to a place with so much raw beauty, so much potential, and in actual fact, I think such a massive future ahead. There we go, one of the fluffier Leo Unleashed I've done. Very soft, no confrontation, no pro-Palestine people on the beach, but there we go, can't win them all. Panel, welcome back. I find it really interesting. I'm from a seaside town, and of course there's a massive problem in the UK with seaside towns all over the country being underdeveloped, underfunded, deprivation. Jaywick Sands, the most deprived, according to that 2019 report, the most deprived part of the UK. But the community there, they've still got a stronger sense of togetherness, Paul.
They do, don't they? But it's astonishing, I think, because there's so much potential. It's very near London, and some of those beaches look absolutely idyllic. I know it was a sunny day, but it just looks amazing.
That would be the worst thing that happens to those people if London sees it as a place for development. If property developers start looking at that place and
I disagree. A bit of extra money and going in there, why not?
It wouldn't be a bit of extra money, would it?
Those people would get moved out. They
don't need to be.
They'd lose their
community. They would.
They would.
Because Ben, when you say, you know, it looks like one of the most deprived areas of the country and it's measured as being one of the most deprived, but you've mentioned a really important point. What makes people happy is a sense of community. That's right at the top.
And you find that I've been to the wealthiest parts of the UK, the poorest, and you do find when there is deprivation, there's poverty, there's more of a sense of community. In these big, expensive housing estates in Surrey and Oxford and so on, everyone's got massive walls, big gates, they keep themselves to themselves. They're all a bit paranoid about burglars.
They are clearly happy people, aren't they?
Christopher Hope, our GB News political editor, he sat down this week on his podcast with Chris Webb, and he spoke about seaside town deprivation in the UK. Take a look at this.
Blackpool and places like mine, coastal communities that have been forgotten about, and we'll be speaking about that in Parliament later today in the debates on coastal communities and tourism. They've been forgotten about. The last Labour government improved cities. You look now at Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, you can see it thriving. Now, you know, I'm calling for this government to have that same determination and focus on coastal communities.
Interesting. Paul, Catherine, one of our members on Your Say, has said, "Oh Lord, watch out, Labour will be flooding Jaywick Sands with illegals."
I said Londoners investing. I don't know about illegals. I think people, but better money going in wouldn't do any harm.
Well, it would.
Support for the local business. I think that'd be fine.
It would.
And places like Blackpool, I live in a seaside town. You live in a seaside town. They do need investment.
They need investment. What they need is investment that's going to make sure that community spirit can stay. And that's not ever what happens. If you look at some of those people will have moved from East London because what they would have been done is gentrified out of East London, and they would have moved further out. And unfortunately, this is what's happening, where there's something that's quite nice and you get property developers coming in, the ordinary working class people who live there get priced out and they move.
But that's up to the local authority to control that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's happening in Jaywick Sands is if and when they get this £120 million package, most of it's going towards this seawall and flood defences.
Which is fair enough, given the history.
Seawall we pushed far out, they're going to create a brand new promenade, maybe back into Worthing or Brighton or something, and then hopefully from there...
because it will become a destination.
Exactly, yeah.
Good.
All right, great stuff. There we go. Hope you enjoyed that. It's my last Leo Unleashed for a few weeks because I'm off for the next 2 weeks. I'm going on holiday. Coming up, police chiefs pulled armed officers away from Downing Street at the height of the violent Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, apparently to appease hostile mobs. More of that, including the front pages, in just a tick.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we also start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. So this weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier. However, with lots of cloud around, that does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us. However, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us and temperatures a little above average.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 10 p.m. I'm Ben Leo, and breaking tonight. On the front page of tomorrow's Mail on Sunday, a bombshell story on the Black Lives Matter protests from 2020. Apparently, the Met Police surrendered to a vicious mob. Coppers were said to be so worried about them that they ordered an armed officer, including his colleagues, to withdraw from Downing Street, putting the safety of Downing Street and Number 10 at risk. They also feared they would take their guns and use them. More on that breaking story in just a tick. Rumours are also swirling tonight. Could Rupert Lowe join the Conservative Party? Reportedly, senior Tory MPs have been holding secret talks with the former Reform MP to join their benches. Also tonight.
So while you work,
I'm gonna need your help.
let's go.
Disney's £250 million remake of Snow White proves a massive box office flop and one of the worst performing movies in recent years. And is it any wonder when the main actress said that Prince Charming in the original story was a weirdo? And one of the saddest stories I've ever come across. We've touched on it in the first hour. I feel we need to do it again because it's so important. An English primary school has cancelled Easter celebrations in a bid to respect other religions and promote diversity. But don't worry, everybody. They're still celebrating Refugee Week instead and becoming a so-called sanctuary school. Joining me this evening is journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, the anarchist and academic Dr. Lisa Mackenzie, and the former Labour special advisor Paul Richards. What do you reckon's going on here?
I've been waiting on this day.
That is a very, very funny clip you do not want to miss. It's been tickling me all day. Big show coming up, including all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. But first, your news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Ben. Good evening to you. Our top stories. The government's ordered an urgent investigation into the power outage at Heathrow Airport yesterday, saying lessons are to be learned. Flights resumed earlier after a fire at a substation resulted in the closure of the airport and global travel chaos. But airlines are warning the disruption could last for days. Heathrow's CEO, Thomas Walby's, welcomed the investigation, but he's under pressure after it emerged he went to bed overnight Thursday into Friday as the crisis was deepening. Almost 300,000 passengers across more than 1,300 flights had their trips cancelled on Friday. Mr Walby will also be expected to explain why Heathrow chose to shut the airport when two of its terminals, 3 and 5, had most of their power. The Independent's travel expert Simon Calder says the delays are likely to continue for days.
While Heathrow is saying we're back to full operation, what they mean is if you've got your pilots and your planes and your passengers in the right place, we can probably handle that. But everything is still in disarray. We heard about all the cancellations of British Airways, total of 100 cancellations today. I think that's going to affect something up to 20,000 passengers, taking us to easily 250,000 since this power plant caught fire and closed down Europe's busiest airport.
Now, Pope Francis will be discharged tomorrow after spending 5 weeks in hospital with double pneumonia. The Pope was admitted to hospital on February the 14th with a severe respiratory infection. His medical team say during that time the Pontiff suffered 2 very critical episodes where his life was in danger. His doctors have confirmed he is now in a stable condition, but will need at least 2 months of rest at the Vatican. He's expected to make his first public appearance in 5 weeks tomorrow. The Lebanese Health Ministry says 7 people, including a child, have been killed by a series of Israeli airstrikes in the south of the country. The Israeli military says it hit dozens of Hezbollah rocket launchers and a command centre. The strikes came after several rockets were fired from Lebanon into Israel. Hezbollah has denied responsibility and says it has no link to the launches. There were no reports of any casualties. Meanwhile, pro-Palestinian protesters have been rallying outside the Israeli embassy in central London. At least 4 separate demonstrations and counter-protests are set to take place across the weekend, according to the Met Police. It comes after a week in which at least 85 Palestinians were killed by Israel. That's according to health authorities in Gaza. Finally, British landmarks, including Buckingham Palace, the London Eye and Windsor Castle, fell dark for 1 hour earlier as part of World Earth Hour. Lights were switched off on those sites at 8:30 UK time, but it happened a little bit earlier elsewhere in the world. This is the Acropolis in Athens, going dark for 1 hour in Greece. And there's the Tokyo Tower in Japan, lights out there. And this is the scene in Victoria Harbour in Hong Kong. Earth Hour organised by WWF, the Nature Group. And they're encouraging governments to do more to tackle climate change. People have been encouraged to switch off their lights at home as well. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more just after 11 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron. Breaking news in the Mail on Sunday. Let's start with the big story that's going to be hitting your shelves tomorrow. The headline reads, Met's craven surrender to the BLM mob. Police chiefs have been accused of capitulating to a Black Lives Matter mob by pulling armed officers away from the gates of Downing Street at the height of violent protests in 2020. Senior officers put the security of Number 10 in jeopardy by their reckless order, according to critics who accused Scotland Yard of appeasing the hostile rabble. Do you remember? Cast your eyes back. I mean, it was during the insanity of COVID, wasn't it? The BLM protests going on at the same time. By the way, what a scam BLM turned out to be. We'll get on to that in just a second. Sunday Express. Asylum crisis wrecking our communities. Really? Who'd have thought? Councils fear outbreaks of violence on Britain's streets. Schools and housing markets overwhelmed as numbers rise. Apparently, the devastating impact of Britain's asylum crisis on communities has been exposed by desperate councils. I mean, exposed? OK. The Observer. All families to be worse off by 2030 as poor bear the brunt in a blow for the PM over living standards pledge, and the Chancellor under pressure ahead of cuts. And the Mirror, the Sunday Mirror. Now name my son's killers. This is Stephen Lawrence's father, who's urged one of his son's killers to name the rest of the gang that murdered him in 1993. It was in Eltham. And the Sunday Telegraph. Rachel Reeves takes axe to civil service. Thousands of Whitehall jobs are to be slashed as the Chancellor unveils a £2 billion budget cut. It's funny, isn't it? Labour, Paul, the Tories reversed Labour reversed the Tories' plans to axe 60,000 civil service staff, but it seems now Labour are doing the same.
Well, good. I mean, we need to save all the money we can, can't we?
Yeah. All right.
OK.
OK, let's talk about the Mail. BLM. Do you remember back in 2020 the absolute havoc they caused?
Yeah.
Downing statues in Bristol and lobbing them in rivers. And anyway, it turned out to be a massive scam because all the founders and the owners resigned amid controversy about mansions and donor money going haywire. Anyway, this story is about the Met Police. They were apparently putting the safety of Number 10 at risk, Lisa, by failing to tackle them properly.
I'm going to be honest. It's as sources say. I'm not sure how much I believe this, to be honest, or I'm not sure how much it's telling a whole picture of this. I've been on many demonstrations, and the Met Police, I've never seen them shy away from people. They'll send the TSG in at you.
Well, that's the point. What demonstrations have you been on?
Oh, loads of housing ones. God.
But Lisa, that's precisely the point.
Yeah.
I went on COVID demos during the height of COVID in 2020.
They send them in.
Look at the demonstrations involving Tommy Robinson. They kettle protesters.
Yeah.
They treat them in a far different way to any of these far left Marxists like BLM. That is precisely the whole point.
That's my experience of the Met, that they send in the TSG, they come in with the shields, they kettle you in, and they make your life very, very miserable, actually, when they get you. So I'm not sure why would they sort of run off from the... I'm not sure why they would.
Well, why do you think?
Well, I don't know.
This is Black Lives Matter. They don't want to be called racist, obviously. Linda?
I think that the Metropolitan Police would be very careful in this situation. That's exactly right. They shouldn't be pulling back, not outside the gates of Number 10, for sure.
Linda, if you could give it some context, why did the BLM protest happen? Because of the death of George Floyd, and, people were going absolutely nuts all around the world. He was killed by a copper. So, I mean, you can kind of understand why the Met would be walking on eggshells, but still.
But it's very dangerous to do that right at this particular point outside the gates of Number 10. They should be absolutely like Caesar's wife, beyond reproach at this point. So it is a very good story, but I'd really like to read a bit more about it to see exactly what the source might be.
OK. Paul, any thoughts on this?
Well, there are multiple examples during the general election of mobs sort of harassing candidates and making the business of democracy impossible to pursue, and then the police actually standing and watching or even withdrawing from that.
Why would they do that?
I don't know, but I think there needs to be questions asked about that.
Paul.
Because
hang on, because I think they stand off. Why do you think?
Well, I think they think it's free speech and it's a legitimate political thing, but it wasn't, because it was stopping canvassers from canvassing and people campaigning and maybe even people voting. There's multiple cases of this, and the police just stand and watch.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Are you?
I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to. You're talking about the instances during the general election. Let's talk about your colleague, Jonathan Ashworth.
Yeah.
He's a friend of the channel. He comes on Breakfast a lot. I think he's quite a nice guy outside politics.
He's a great bloke.
But look, he said today that multiculturalism hadn't failed, despite the fact that there's plenty of videos online of Jonathan Ashworth getting harassed in the street by sectarian voters in Leicester. He lost his seat at the general election.
Well, he wasn't the only one, of course. There are multiple examples.
Why don't we call this out for what it is? Why are we so scared to call out sectarian... This two-tier policing from the Met and other police.
I think the police do have questions to answer on this, but I'm not going to suggest what their motives are. I think if it's a tactic, because they're worried about greater violence, or in this case, the briefing suggests they're worried about the guns being taken off them, well, they need to justify that and explain it. Otherwise, it just looks like...
Court papers revealed that this is going on. So that seems to be...
Well, let me read this statement from the Met. The Met Police says it was right to stand down the elite protection officers, so it did happen, because of the risk of guns being fired. The Force's barrister, Adam Clemens, said a crowd in the vicinity of the junction of Whitehall and Downing Street, this is in 2020, appeared either to be focusing or at least directing some of their ire on Downing Street itself. There was a genuine concern that protesters might attempt to get into Downing Street. So, I mean, there's your admission. They did. They pulled away. They allowed the protesters to crack on with it.
Well, that's nuts, isn't it? They should be putting a ring of steel around Downing Street. Exactly.
They should be. Downing Street, you've got the inside of the gates, and inside the gates there are armed officers.
So, good.
So, you know, I don't think that Downing Street would have been...
You can't be a member of the police force and say that you are not going to go into a situation because you fear that the rabble-rousers will take your weapon and start using it. A police officer...
What's happened in America?
That's quite worrying. If they are doing this and they are thinking this, that this is extremely worrying. Because I've watched the pro-Palestine stuff for the last year and a half, and I've wondered, again, when I used to be on the streets protesting in London, we were never treated like that.
Yeah.
You know, they never sort of allowed us to get away with anything.
I'm sorry, what an absolute joke as well. If you're an armed police officer in this country, I've got a couple of mates who work in armed police. If someone's at threat of taking your gun and you think it's going to be fired...
That's my point.
What do you do? What was happening in America?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't want to see it happen, but they'd be shot.
I've worked with...
Protesters would be shot.
Yeah,
Would they not?
Counter-terrorism officers, armed officers like you, they don't pull back because someone's going to take their weapon off them.
I mean, I always thought that, you know, the Manchester airport, because I always thought then they got off really lucky, because in any other country they would have been shot. You know, the guys that attacked the...
In America,
the guys in Manchester.
Yeah, but they would have been shot in America.
In America,
absolutely.
In Spain, France, anywhere.
Should we look at the Sunday Express quickly? I mean, it's billed as a rather damning expose, but, I mean, this is something that most normal-thinking people have recognised for many, many years in this country. The headline reads, "Asylum crisis wrecking our communities. Councils fear outbreaks of violence on Britain's streets. Schools and housing markets overwhelmed as numbers rise." I mean...
I mean, the point is, once you've got a fully loaded, if you like, asylum-seeking hotel, you inevitably change the balance of the population in an area, if it's a small area or even a small town. And that is very, very destabilising.
I think councils...
On several levels.
I think councils are right, actually, on this, because, obviously, when you talk to people out in the real world, people are extremely angry. They're angry, yes, at refugees, but there's another story about families to be worse off by 2030. So there's a lot of pain out there, and people are getting very angry, putting two things together that may or may not go together, but they
will put them together.
Yeah, but they are putting them together. So actually, councils are right to be quite worried that this.
What do you think about the idea of letting them work? I think they should be allowed to work. It could be in a very controlled way, picking up litter, or reclaiming canals, whatever. No, but you change the law, and then they would be earning and paying tax. They wouldn't be lounging around all day, and they'd be part of the community.
Pipeline of
while they work, they could be working.
And no, you can't put them into the tax system
because this pressure valve
is permission to remain in this country.
The pressure is because they're sitting around day after day in hotels.
I know that because I've worked with
causing trouble. So let them work.
How do you do that if...
We put them in work gangs and they send them out to do something useful.
Linda?
You can't do it if someone's made an application for the right to remain in this country. You have to wait until that application...
But you don't have to do that. That's the system now, but you can change the system, is my point.
The issue is then, so, OK, they can work. I think that something else needs to happen than this. But if they go out to work, who's paying the hotel bill? Who's paying the food bill? Because what you'll get then even worse resentment, because they're not only working, getting jobs...
And do you know what they'll do?
They're getting free...
Do you know what they'll do? They'll go on TikTok to their tens of thousands of followers and say, hey, guys, back in Gaza, I've got myself a job. Yeah, I'm now working in the UK. It's just going to encourage more and more people to come.
I mean, the French keep telling us over and over again, sort your black economy out because it's the pull factor. And, you know, that's
a very good point.
Yeah, the French keep saying this over and over again.
Just going back to this Met Police story on the front of the Mail on Sunday, where they're accused of basically running away from a vicious Black Lives Matter mob outside Downing Street in 2020. The Met Police has just posted on X, formerly Twitter, "This is misleading," referring to the story. While we cannot comment on the specifics of security matters, Downing Street remained fully protected by armed officers throughout the occasion. It is completely wrong to suggest security of the site was compromised. As a matter of routine, in policing any protests, we would seek to avoid firearms officers coming into contact with protesters. Okay. Well, we also had the court documents, but... coming up in just a tick, more front pages. But first, though, we want to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British giveaway. Your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details.
You could be the next big winner of the Great British Giveaway, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag, and not one, but two sought-after designer watches, so you can style it out this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, good luck. Coming up, I'll go through tomorrow's front pages with the editor of the Daily Star, John Ward, and we'll also be touching again, I know I did in the first hour, but I feel it's so important, I'll be touching again on that absolutely bonkers story from Hampshire about the primary school who have cancelled Easter out of respect for other religions and cultures, but they're still happy to have a refugee week in just a few weeks' time. Back in just a tick.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I developed achalasia when I was 17, but achalasia can impact people of all ages. So what I experienced when I first developed achalasia was essentially when I was eating, food was getting stuck here, so in my esophagus, and it just really wouldn't go down. So you know when you're eating a piece of bread, a big piece of bread really fast, and it kind of gets stuck and you need water. That was my first symptom. And that was happening every now and again when I was eating, but then it started happening every time I was swallowing. So that made eating incredibly difficult and painful. And I used to have to drink, well, I still do drink a lot of water whilst I'm eating, but I was really having to gulp loads of water in it. It was really painful at every gulp. And that led to quite a lot of weight loss. So a lot of people with achalasia, because of the difficulties they experience in swallowing, they lose weight because either they avoid food or they're regurgitating food as well, so they have to kind of get it out, and so it can be really unpleasant. Obviously, you experience a lot of pain, and it impacts on every part of your social life as well, and on your general life. People end up being malnourished, losing loads of weight, and that impacts on your everyday life and work life as well. And then people, unfortunately, also, you know, get very fatigued, experience anxiety and depression as well. So those are the impacts of achalasia.
What are the treatments? What can people do if they're suffering with this condition? What can they do?
So, I mean, obviously, the first step is to get a diagnosis, and that's already quite difficult because there's low awareness of achalasia, even amongst the medical community. Getting a diagnosis can be complicated and can take quite a long time, and people can get misdiagnosed. In terms of treatment, so there is no cure.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. We have been laughing because Robert Smith on Your Say, I don't think you're a regular by the sounds of it, you said, why do they let Muppets like Ben Leo present show? Don't they have someone that can string a sentence together? Robert, after saying present show, I think you mean present shows, I think that advice applies to you, my friend. Anyway, we'll move on. We're joined now by the Deputy Editor of the Daily Star, John Ward. John, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Let's have a look at the Daily Star on Sunday, first of all. 1 million Brits wake up their neighbours with their bedtime snoring. Grab the earplugs. 1 million of us snore so loudly they even wake the folks next door. Should we talk about this quickly? My wife actually is guilty of this. Do you snore, John?
Well, yes, I was going to ask you, you're a snorer. I'm probably the guilty one in my house, so I've probably been kicked out.
Oh, God. It's a big problem, though. 1 million of us. It is a serious issue. Some people divorce over snoring.
Well, some people... In this report, it says that they won't go to hotels or go to other people's houses because of fear of snoring and being embarrassed about it.
So where's this report from?
It's a report from the Asda Online Doctor, who've done a survey of snoring, and they found. But I've never heard that. I've been loud, but I've never heard of anyone complaining from next door. But apparently, some of the snorers are hitting decibels as high as a rock concert. So,
yeah, my wife.
That's kind of...
Sorry.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the same bed as that.
Any of you guys snore here, Linda, Lisa?
Well, you know, I used to snore really badly. Then I lost 10 stone in weight, and now I don't snore anymore. So there you go.
Because you've lost all that fat around your neck.
Exactly.
That's what happens.
I've lost 10 stone. Yeah.
How much did you weigh?
I was 23.5 stone. Now I'm about 13.5.
Yeah.
I'll show you the before and after pictures. But I snored every night, and it was really bad, and now I don't. So there you go. Lose weight.
It's all the fat.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I was quite a big. I was a big guy. It's true.
Yeah, it's
Mrs. Leo is not going to be happy.
Are you saying I've lost the plot? I've actually lost. Is it who is doing the snoring in this household? Is it you, or is it?
No, my wife snores.
Mrs. Leo is going to be very happy.
She's gone on holiday to Spain, so she won't be watching. We'll get this episode taken off YouTube as well, so she can't catch up with it. Should we look at the Daily Telegraph, John? You're quite keen on this story about Rachel Reeves taking an axe to the civil service. Interesting, I said to Paul Richards here, former Labour Special Advisor, the Tories, of course, wanted to slash 60,000 civil service jobs before they lost the election. Labour reversed it, but now it seems they're taking their own flamethrower to Whitehall.
Yes, it seems like the Elon Musk effect has had some sort of effect over this Labour government. Although I'm not sure Elon Musk is doing such a great job of just cutting everything. However, yes, it seems a bit of an odd Labour thing to do, is to cut jobs in the government, especially there was supposedly a big union party, I don't think the unions are going to be pretty happy about cutting tens of thousands of jobs from the civil service.
What do you think? Let's see what Paul Richards has to say about that. What do you make of those comments?
Well, I think, we've got the black hole has to be filled somehow, and I think Rachel is doing the right thing. We've got to save money. The country's going bankrupt slowly.
You don't ever get the impression, though, do you, that Keir Starmer kind of develops policy as a result of what he expects to go down well in the terms of the communication he puts out in the public arena?
No, it's tough decisions because of the mess we inherited,
But if Keir Starmer is doing that, looking at sort of what might be popular, he's getting it all wrong because he's not popular at all. And there seems to be...
No, but this move might be popular.
This move might be popular, yes. But...
it's part of a bigger package, though, isn't it? That's what we're going to see on Wednesday.
I don't think anybody in the country is going to be sort of upset for civil servants. Although saying that, I mean, civil servants do a range of jobs.
Of course, yeah, exactly that.
OK, John, and you've also seen something that tickles your fancy on the Times. What is it? Sunday Times.
Well, Leeds University had to pay student loans, and student loans keep going up and up. And it seems that it's being rinsed by fraudsters from not in the country, signing up for loans and grants and not even turning up for in the country, and we can't get the money back.
Hang on a minute. So people from abroad are successfully applying for student loans, and they don't live here, they don't go to university here, and yet they get paid out, and of course they're not paying it back.
They can never find the money back.
Goodness me. What's the figure on the Times? I haven't actually got it in front of me. What's the figure?
It's hundreds of millions, I think. Hang on.
100 million a year?
Ooh,
it doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things, does it? I guess
it's still wrong, though, isn't it?
But you've got to tackle all of it.
It's unsurprising that this is a problem in the universities, because I work in universities and we are a basket case, to be honest. The whole of HE is... students are getting into massive amounts worth of debt and then only earning 25 grand when they leave university.
Keeping it under the cap.
Well, no, they're not purposely keeping. Nobody wants to earn less. The problem is people are earning less. You're not getting, the idea that you'd get this graduate job post-university, those jobs aren't there. OK,
John, last question to you. I guess it's a sister paper, the Sunday Express, right? You Reach PLC? Yeah. Asylum crisis wrecking our communities. I mean, to me, this isn't really news, but, they're explaining how schools and the housing market are now under such pressure from asylum seekers in this country. Numbers are rising and we're overwhelmed. Does it surprise you and your readers at the Daily Star?
I don't think it surprises anyone. It seems a bit of an incendiary headline because it's not often the asylum seekers that are at fault. They often get the blame. It's the system that's very obviously at fault here, and the money being spent, billions of pounds on hotels.
Yeah, crazy. £8 million a day, and the rest of it. Tennis lessons, athletics coaching, bus passes, trips into town centres, NHS dentistry, GPs on site, spending money on an Aspen card from the Home Office, free internet. It goes on and on. John Ward, deputy editor, not yet, at the Daily Star Sunday. Thank you for your company. Should we talk, panel, very quickly, before we head to the break, about... where are we? The Sunday Mirror. Stephen Lawrence has popped up again in the news cycle this week because David Norris, his killer, who is serving time in prison, he's finally admitted to the parole board that he was involved in the attack.
What he says is... I was there at the time. I punched, but I didn't knife him. But the fact of the matter is, he has to say that to actually get through the parole board.
Well, Neville Lawrence, Stephen's father, has spoken to the Sunday Mirror. He has urged one of his son's killers to name the rest of the gang that murdered him. He's making a direct appeal to David Norris to say, to reveal who else was involved in the attack, because there are still some people who aren't accounted for. Stephen's father, Neville, who's now 83. Can you imagine the torment?
But do you remember when I think there were five walked free from court? I remember the Daily Mail, and Paul Dacre stood up. He really, really did a good job that night, and he talked to the lawyers for hours and hours and hours, and then at the final minute he said, we publish these names, we name the guilty men. I think that was the headline. So we know who they are.
Yeah, I think the Lawrences, they need to have this, don't they? This has been a life sentence for them, and I think they need to know that. And
they're so dignified as well. I mean, Doreen Lawrence in particular in the House of Lords now. It's such a brilliant campaign, but they just need that final closure, don't they?
Yeah.
Yes. Neville Lawrence has said he should name, David Norris should name the others who joined him in murdering my son. Somebody said during the week, I think it was on Friday when this David Norris story was doing the rounds, they said, why, this is what they said, by the way, not me, they said, why do we care so much about Stephen Lawrence? People get killed in racist attacks
because he's become emblematic of something.
I was making the point on air that it's the aftermath of it. It was the revelations about the Met, it was the inquiry, it was the so-called institutional racism, Lisa.
The corruption,
everything.
Also the corruption of the Met as well, the connections to organised crime, that the families...
it was symbolic.
Yeah.
It was symbolic.
It was
many
symbolic.
layers of problems.
But also, I think we could connect this also to grooming gangs, because I think if we had a proper inquiry over grooming gangs, we might find the same sort of corruption that we found in the Stephen Lawrence case.
Isn't it funny? Keir Starmer, Paul, wants to hold a public discussion on Adolescence, this stupid new Netflix series that portrays knife maniacs as apparently working-class young white boys, and he won't have an inquiry about grooming gangs.
Well, there are lots of inquiries.
Wants to talk about
there are lots of inquiries into grooming gangs as well, you know.
A national inquiry.
And he's not calling for a national inquiry into Adolescence, the television programme. He's just saying it sparks a conversation, which, let's face it, is. Everybody's watching it, everyone's talking about it.
Have you seen it?
Not yet.
I have.
I'm scared of seeing it. I'm not sure I want to.
Actually, it's a really good programme.
Right.
I haven't got Netflix. I can't afford it.
Except it's based on... Anyway, I'm not going to go into it. Coming up, Norwood Primary School in Eastleigh in Hampshire has cancelled its Easter celebrations to promote inclusivity, sparking debate online and offline as well tonight, of course, about the potential cancellation of other religious holidays. Basically, in a nutshell, they scrapped Easter because they said they wanted to be sensitive to other religions and minorities. But by the way, they're holding a refugee week instead. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
So the parents in the right, or should they really be taking their kids out during holiday, during end of term break?
Good morning. Yes, it's a real interesting one, but I think there are a few problems with it. There are already 443,000 absences per year. And actually, if they did get their policy and everyone could have this time off, holiday companies aren't here for the fun of it. They're going to just up the prices all year round. And I think that's what this is about. A lot of parents want to grab an absolute bargain. And it's kind of selfish because a holiday is a choice. It's not a necessity. One of the other things they talk about is SEND children also need to have time off. Now, I am a mum of a child who has a disability, so I understand the complex needs with that, but that's a given. You know, that's something to take up with a local authority. It's you're allowed to have time off if your child has a medical condition. So, yeah.
It's obviously quite a divisive issue, isn't it? It does separate people into two camps. There's people who want to take their kids out during term time to save a bit of cash, and then there's people who think that children should be in school when they're supposed to be in school. How do you think they'll get on with this campaign? Do you think they'll have any success?
Well, I don't think they will, to be honest with you. I think it's too small. And the other thing is it's quite disruptive on the classroom. If you can imagine, I already play catch up because my son has half a day off a week. So I can imagine if that's going on all year round with all the children, trying to keep track of it, sounds an absolute nightmare to me. I mean, personally, I'd rather just go away on holiday on my own without my child and have some relaxation. So that would be my advice to them. Get the granny in.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Paul, lots of viewers are asking about a black hole. They've got some questions for you, the 22 billion, but I'll get back to that in just a sec.
Sure.
The big story of this evening, and I think it will be the big story of the following days and next week, a Hampshire primary school has reportedly cancelled their Easter celebrations in a bid, get this, to respect diverse and religious beliefs. What's followed is complete outrage as a letter has been shared on Facebook, believed to have been from the school's head teacher to parents, which stated, quote, "We understand that this change may be disappointing for some, especially those who have cherished these traditions over the years. However, we believe that this decision aligns with our values of inclusivity and respect for diversity." We've reached out to the school tonight for comments and multiple governors and so on, but we are still waiting for a response. We'll get that to you as soon as we have it. I'm joined now, though, by the columnist at the Catholic Universe Weekly, Caroline Favreau. Caroline, nice to have your company again. I couldn't think of a better person to speak to about this, actually. I was stunned at this story. Normally, I think I'd be a bit angry, a bit outraged. I actually tonight felt pretty sad and I felt defeated. It was such a shock to me.
Yes, I think it is sad and depressing and also quite worrisome to see such a high level of ignorance in somebody who's tasked with educating our children. So let's be really clear. What she's cancelled is an Easter bonnet parade and a voluntary church service. Well, the children go to the church service and it was voluntary for the parents, so I understand. We are not talking about a conversion experience. We're not talking about showing children Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. We're actually talking about an immersive cultural experience where children get to experience, some of the culture and history that binds this country together. It's part of this. Christianity is part of the social fabric of the UK. And in fact, she may think that she's being very inclusive. Actually, she's being exclusive and she's imposing her own version of ideology on children. And that is a very fundamentalist, secularist ideology. It's that all religions are the same and we can't talk about one because it might offend someone else. Frankly, if somebody is from a different background or a different faith, it will do them absolutely no harm whatsoever to just have this immersive spiritual experience. This is actually depriving children of their heritage, of their birthright. And yet she's going to introduce Refugee Week, which is not religious or spiritual. This is a political ideology.
Yeah. Caroline, do you think the attack, I'm going to call it an attack on Christianity and British identity, do you think this is deliberate or do you think it's just incompetence from people who are, they're do-gooders, let's be frank, they're just do-gooders who think they're doing the right thing most of the time? Or do you think there's something intentional behind it? Is there an agenda?
I think there's a bit of both, actually, because, when you take away Easter services, when you take away our sort of Christian traditions, it is chipping away at our historical and cultural, the historical and cultural fabric that binds us all together. And it's all part of this sort of cultural Marxism, isn't it? We should all be terribly ashamed of ourselves as white English Christians. We should all, hang our heads in shame because of slavery and make reparations. And in fact, it's so hypocritical because I bet this headmistress or this head teacher, to give her correct title, would not hesitate to wish pupils a happy Eid or to say don't eat ham sandwiches during Ramadan, to follow every other cultural, every other faith and culture in the name of inclusivity and being open, but being desperately ashamed of our own. There is,
what a joke.
What harm does an Easter bonnet parade? It's a nice thing for children to do. It's a very English, very Western custom.
Indeed. Indeed. What a joke, and I feel sorry for the poor kids, actually, as well, because they've got people like that leading them into adulthood. Caroline Farrow, thank you for your company, as ever. I really appreciate you joining me tonight and speaking with you. Let's have a quick run-through of tomorrow's newspapers, the front pages. Let's start with the Daily Star on Sunday. Horror story. Apparently 1 million Brits wake up their neighbours with their bedtime snoring. The Sunday Telegraph. Rachel Reeves takes an axe to the civil service. She's going to be slashing £2 billion worth of jobs in budget cuts. The Mail on Sunday. The Met Police's craven surrender to the BLM mob. They've been accused of putting Number 10 in jeopardy by their reckless order to retreat from the Black Lives Matter mob in 2020. The Sunday Express. Who knew? Asylum crisis wrecking our communities. Schools and housing markets overwhelmed as numbers rise. Really? The Observer. All families to be worse off by 2030 as poor bear the brunt. And the Sunday Mirror. Stephen Lawrence's father is calling on one of his son's killers, David Norris, to name the rest of the gang that killed his son in 1993. Let's move on to some funny clips that have tickled us this week. I don't know if you guys have ever had an angry delivery driver, but this person from the United States really took the prize. Take a look.
I've been waiting on this day to tell you how much I hate this house. The waters, all the that you order, all I hate it. I hate this house. I hate that you order. You are laziest house in this whole goddamn neighborhood. You're inconsiderate. I hate everything about y'all.
I felt really sorry for our poor producer, Mariana, who had to bleep out every swear word in every clip. I think it took her a long time. Well done, Mariana. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like she's in the right job, Linda.
No, not. But it's surprising how many angry delivery drivers there are.
It's a terrible
Have you noticed?
job. It's a
there
bad
was one
job,
where I used to
though.
live in East Sheen, which is, quite close to Richmond. So it's quite a well-behaved area. And there was this one, can I say yodel driver, or will I get told off? I am not joking. It was like a kamikaze pilot driving through the houses.
It's not a great job,
terrible.
though. It's not a good job to have, is it? I mean...
All right.
Well, it doesn't matter. You've got to do it properly.
Let me show you
politely.
Let me show you something maybe a little more something that will spark some debate. This is just take a look.
Don't get like a manual. Oh, this is how to raise a brown child in this Western world. Like, you don't get that. So they did what they could.
That's why I moved to London. I wanted to find diversity. Absolutely. I've always been attracted to people that share my melanin. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to date someone that looks like me because I want my child to grow up and look at me and see themselves in me.
Well, she had amazing eyes, that woman. The controversy here is apparently some people are saying that if it was a white person, Lisa, saying these kind of things, sat there saying, I only want to date white people, so on and so on, that apparently they'd be called racist. I agree with the ladies there. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to date somebody from your own background or heritage.
No. I mean, there's not. I mean, my ex-husband, his family were Jamaican, so my son is mixed race. And I've never really seen a problem with any, with people saying, this is who I fancy. People have obviously over the years, sort of questioned why you go out with this particular person or that. But the fact is if you fancy who you fancy.
But is it right, Linda, if a white person sat there saying what they said, they probably would be called racist, wouldn't they?
I think there is a possibility that might happen, yeah.
I mean, people, trans...
So you mean if there's a white woman there on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and she's saying, I only want to date white men because they reflect who I am, that might be judged racist.
Paul, your thoughts?
Don't know. Date who you like. I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, some trans militants do it. They say if you don't fancy trans women, biological men, then you're transphobic.
Yeah, that does happen.
Just
that
bizarre,
does on the lesbian websites. That some of the lesbian websites won't take trans women off.
It's too much, too confusing. Anyway, more papers back after the break. Stick with us, Ben Leo, tonight, only on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
After a chilly week, things are turning warmer for Cyprus. We've seen some very heavy rain this week in Spain, but finally turning drier. Still a cold breeze coming down from the north, though, bringing a chill to the Canaries, and still quite a few heavy showers across southern Spain and for Catalonia and the Balearics too on Sunday. But it does look as if it will be turning drier. Some heavy showers for Croatia, plenty of fine and sunny weather over the Greek islands. It'll be warming up here too and turning much drier in Barcelona next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we will start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. So this weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier, however, with lots of cloud around. That does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us, however, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us and temperatures a little above average.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Lots of you on gbnews.com/yoursay have been asking a very similar question. It's to our esteemed Labour guest here, Paul Richards. Paul, they have said, well, I'll read Mark's. Ben, please ask Paul why he's still spouting off about this fictional black hole when the OBR report said there was no evidence of this.
Well, the OBR neither supported it or refuted it, but if you look at the Treasury audit and if you look at fullfact.org, it gives the full chapter and verse why we're saying 22 billion, because the economy was wrecked by Liz Truss and the rest of them. That's why. So it stands up as a figure and it's based on Treasury numbers.
All right, how long is Rachel Reeves going to last? One word.
Till the next election.
OK. Right, time now for big weekend fails, where my panel and I all pick something that's happened in the week which we think is a massive fail. I'll go first. Here's mine.
Determined to put money back in the pockets of working people. And that's why a Labour government would freeze council tax this year. No ifs, no buts.
Labour would freeze council tax next year.
We're going to freeze council tax next year. We would freeze council tax.
We will freeze council tax this year. Paul, I opened my council tax bill this week. I looked at it and I said, You liar.
Yeah.
What happened with that?
It's because of the 22 billion black hole, isn't it?
Oh, dearie me. OK, who's next? Linda, this is yours. Talk us through it.
Oh, well, I think we've just got a still here, haven't we? I don't think we can see it.
Here we go, here we go. It's coming, it's coming.
But this came out on Sky
this is just
week.
the book.
Oh, yeah. It is really, really fun. It's to do with the
best thing ever.
very serious fire at Heathrow.
So for our radio viewers, what are we looking at?
And what we're looking at is the Sky News presenter who is talking about Scandinavian Airlines whilst showing the logo for the SAS Who Dares Wins Special Forces Regiment.
Yeah, so this Scandi Airlines name is SAS.
It's SAS.
And obviously in the Sky systems, look, I'm not going to have a dig at Sky for some mistake like that.
But I tell you what, no, I was in with the Brits at Sky and we made loads of mistakes.
Never wrong for long, right?
Never wrong for long was indeed our slogan.
Very funny,
So I
though.
feel perfectly
This
OK
is the
about
best thing.
flagging this up. In fact, can I say one more thing?
Yep.
John Nichols, the esteemed RAF pilot who was shot down in the first Gulf War, put it out, he's a Facebook friend, he put it out on Facebook. Another friend who worked at Sky sent it to me. So I think we're all OK to mention it.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun.
Well, but the airline did an absolutely brilliant meme on it saying, you know, we're the guys with the free coffee, not the parachutes.
Very good. OK, Paul, this is your big weekend fair. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
So while you work,
I'm gonna need your help.
Let's go!
So, Paul, this is Rachel Zegler, who from Snow White. It's been a flop. Just explain what's...
Well, it's the Walt Disney Corporation in the frame here, I think. It's the ad people and the executives who decided to do this remake.
Yeah.
And I think Walt Disney himself probably turned in his grave. You know, perfectly good film, an iconic classic movie, wrecked by the studio.
Yeah. OK, Lisa, this is your big weekend fair.
Great British Energy is your publicly owned energy company, and here's its first project, putting solar panels on the roofs of schools and hospitals in your community. That's what a publicly owned energy company can do for our country.
Oh, come on, Lisa, what's wrong with that? We need clean energy, there's a climate crisis.
What's wrong with it? It's just Ed Miliband. Every time he comes on he says anything, he looks rubbish, he speaks rubbish.
It's a great idea. It's going to save...
He's trying to sound passionate about...
Isn't it actually important to flag up that a lot of those solar panels are made in China?
Yeah, and also tonight we've drove into London through the M1, and there's masses of fields over fields of solar panels. I mean, why are we putting solar panels?
To save their bills, that's right. It's going to bring the bills down.
It's not, though, is it?
Of course it is.
I just think Ed
Save
Miliband...
money for the schools and the hospitals. Good idea.
I think Ed Miliband...
Good old Ed.
Ed Miliband is just a fail.
Apparently...
Full stop.
Yeah.
Apparently, Ed Miliband maybe... I've been speaking to some people this week. They reckon that Ed Miliband maybe is going to be the first cabinet minister to fall on his sword. Thoughts on that, very quickly?
Well, we've already lost two, so I don't think so. He's doing a good job.
He might be next.
Apparently, I have to... because I talked about Labour reversing on... Well, Keir Starmer reversing on his council tax promise, I just need to let you know what the other parties' policies are.
Because we're in an election.
The last manifesto in 2024, the Tories promised a future government would not undertake, quote, expensive council tax re-evaluations or review discounts, and the Lib Dems wanted to give local authorities the power to bump up council tax by 500% on second properties. And I think Reform UK pledged to probably reduce council tax. There we go. Thank you, panel. Appreciate you. I'm going on holiday, so you won't see me for a few weeks.
You have a good time.
My esteemed Saturday panel, but thank you, though,
have
for
a
your...
sake on me.
Yeah.
Yes,
sayonara.
Or miso soup. Leo Curse is on standby for headliners. Leo, what's up on the show tonight?
We've got Nick Dixon and Aideen McQueen on the show tonight, so every part of the British Isles represented, and we're going to be covering that school that cancelled Easter to be inclusive. I don't know why inclusivity never seems to include guys like me. It's always excluding someone. And Stephen Hawking has been accused of being involved in the slave trade, which is bizarre. I don't know why people couldn't get away from him. And Stop Funding Hate are in trouble for, you won't believe it, funding hate.
Interesting. Yeah, Stephen Hawking, last year, there was that very curious story about him travelling to Epstein Island.
Yes.
Yeah, I say no more. Leo, thank you very much. Thank you for that. Look forward to headliners. Thanks for your company at home tonight. Really appreciate you being with me. Up next is headliners, of course. I'm back tomorrow night for my last show before my little holiday. Time now, though, for your weather. Good night. See you tomorrow.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Changeable conditions continuing across the rest of the weekend with further heavy showers in place, but we will start to see rain easing across northern areas. However, low pressure is still very much in charge of our weather through the rest of the weekend. It's this weather front here that gradually starts to ease the rain across northern parts of the UK, but further south there will still be some outbreaks of rain through the rest of Saturday evening. Where we've seen any of those heavier showers through Saturday afternoon, they'll gradually start to ease or push their way northwards, merging into longer spells of rain for parts of northern England and eastern Scotland too, but Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland turning drier, however, with lots of cloud around. That does mean a very mild night to come, 10 or 11 degrees across the very far south. There will be some brightness to start across the very far south of England through the first part of the morning, but further north, a much cloudier picture to start the day, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, continuing to see those outbreaks of rain through the morning, maybe even the odd flake of sleet and snow over any high ground. Northwest Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland seeing a bit of brightness, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and North Wales generally much cloudier. Some outbreaks of rain here and perhaps some brightness across the very far southwest and eastern parts of England too. That rain across the northern half of the country gradually starting to ease as we go through Sunday daytime, gradually easing by the time we get to the afternoon. And in the south, where we do see some sunshine, likely to see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Again, these could be quite heavy, perhaps thundery in places, some hail mixed in there, so there could be some surface water issues. And it'll be a very mild day again, 17, 18, perhaps 19 degrees in the south, and temperatures still above average further north. Starting the day on Monday, much drier and brighter start, particularly across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine around, but quite a bit of cloud across England and Wales, although that gradually easing as we go through the daytime. So a dry day for many of us, however, that weather front soon arriving across the northwest. High pressure then remains in charge as we go through next week, so generally turning more settled for all of us and temperatures a little above average.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. We're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter, just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out, enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News. Full T's and C's apply.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class